Bitcoin now hovering around $45,000 after crossing $60,000 earlier this year. The cryptocurrency down more than 20% since Elon Musk's SNL gig, bringing down with it companies with Bitcoin on their balance sheet. MicroStrategy, Tesla, Square, PayPal, all taking hits over the past 3 months.
Mike, we don't use closing prices. I don't know what it's going to, since it trades all the time, so it doesn't really matter whether it's closing or not. It is below, but I defended you earlier because nobody knows. You said around 40. Do you still think that we're near a place where Bitcoin stabilizes, at least? Just give us your update.
Jill, let me turn to you first and ask whether or not you think there's a single culprit for what's happened in the past few weeks, and whether or not this change in sentiment is really important.
And you're talking about this, but I'm looking at this. I mean, 34% on it. I'm looking at the significant fall in the cryptocurrency.
It was
Bitcoin
Elon Musk declared it top.
Ether is down 40%. No, it's the Chinese.
Saturday Night Live.
It's the Chinese, Jim.
Oh, well,
it's the Chinese.
Musk and China.
They've tightened the restrictions that ban financial institutions and payment companies from providing services related to cryptocurrency. We've got to tell people here. It's a fresh crackdown. They want to create their own, digital currency, we believe.
You have been a longtime bull. You've talked about institutional interest for a very long time in Bitcoin. Is that changing?
No, let's not miss the forest through the trees, right? Bitcoin's up 55% on the year. Ethereum's up 240%. We had staggering moves on a positive story, right? Of institutional adoption, of the adoption of blockchains in all kinds of business. And so I don't think anything's changed in that story. Listen, markets get ahead of themselves, they correct. This is kind of natural in markets. We had tax day yesterday. A lot of people made a lot of money in crypto and had to pay tax. You also had that big surge post-COVID, kind of finally hit the 1 year mark. So people went from short-term to long-term gains. I'm sure that triggered some people to sell. You had Elon bringing up these ESG concerns, which are real.
Listen, both on the charts and it felt like we had capitulation this morning. You never know. The one thing that's clear is a lot more people own crypto, crypto had seeped into pockets all over our society. And you had a confluence of events, combination of tax day, Elon Musk tweets, whatnot, where you started breaking down the positivity and the price action. And now we've got a liquidation event. And, Humpty Dumpty never gets put back together in 2 days when he cracks. It's going to take a while. The market will consolidate. It'll find a bottom somewhere. I'm hoping it's close to here.
By the way, it will only help their surveillance of everything that goes on in Chinese society, because they'll know exactly who's spending what at any moment, one would expect.
Well,
Not to mention they have this idea of perhaps trying to replace the dollar sometime with their own Chinese digital currency.
And they've had currency controls. Carl, I mean, look, I think we can relate, obviously, what's going on with Bitcoin.
You're setting me up here. You're setting me up here to name the one man that's been in the news more than anybody else around these price moves, Elon Musk.
36,000 now, maybe 38,000. It did feel like capitulation this morning. Ethereum, 2,600, 2,400. We're pretty close. They've had big sell-offs with huge volume.
With the sell-off in equities, but I think
of course we can, right? I mean, that's why.
But there's two kinds of equities.
But this is related.
No, but I had Greg Hayes on last night.
So many of these youngsters, Jim, are trading.
They'll get burned out. Then they'll take their stimmy.
They're trading crypto and they're trading stocks.
They're taking their
for them,
stimmy
it's the same thing.
They're going to be addressed just like every other industry addresses their ESG concerns. And so you put those three things together, it caused a pretty nice sell-off. I think we're going to. Go ahead.
Let's go straight to the ESG concerns, because I think that's actually perhaps what took the price of Bitcoin down the most, and raises, I think, some real questions. Can it be addressed? Sure. Can it be addressed quickly? I think not.
But it's not going to bounce right back. It'll consolidate for a while. The story hasn't gone anywhere, right? This crypto revolution is happening. But these are certainly setbacks for the wallet and for the investor base, right? People lost a lot of money, and so they'll dust themselves off.
Yes, but what does that have to do with the price-to-earnings ratio of Bristol Myers, which is held in very well? Why? Because it's a real company. Even though it missed the quarter, Look at that, it's 65. It's the Rock of Gibraltar. Raytheon, David Greg Hayes comes on Mad Money and tells us a bountiful story. You think that stock's going to get hurt? Do you think that Take-Two, after being the 496th best performer this year, it didn't report a great number and can bounce? Carl, I am trying to separate the Woodstock, Elon Musk, PRC control stocks from the rest of the market, because we're going to lose, and David remembers this, we're going to lose the essence of what happened in April of 2000, when there was a radical shift away from things that turned out to have very little worth.
Of course. And listen, just to address that from the outset, I think there's a very simple explanation for his about face, for Tesla's about face, which comes down to the fact that Tesla needs to maintain its status and perception as a clean energy play, as an ESG. You know, that's important for its inclusion in certain funds and portfolios. That's important for its relationship with government. And I think that it's as simple as that. It's very fun to conjecture about the rantings and ravings of a potential madman, but I wouldn't overblow that element of it.
I don't know anybody who thinks realistically that the way Bitcoin is structured can somehow take up either less energy unto itself, though I know there are efforts for that. And then the question, of course, is, can you start using, solar and wind and all sorts of things? And I know there's efforts to do that, but that's going to take a long time. If Elon Musk has decided that he can't buy Bitcoin, how can a big institution like BlackRock even think about it?
Well, we'll see. Some people are tweeting it's because you stopped wearing those bizarre sweaters and the Elton John glasses, and that was the top. I don't know what you look like right now. Hopefully you're wearing something, but you're on the phone. Do you? I've heard a narrative that China wants to promote Bitcoin to destabilize the dollar. That's a Kyle Bass sort of a narrative, and now we're hearing China is no friend of Bitcoin. That is the most recent data point that people are pointing to for why we're seeing this weakness today. What do you make of China's recent comment?
Well, listen, they all buy Google stock, and Google owns YouTube, and YouTube uses 2.5% of all electricity, right? I mean, it's shocking. Like, things that are worth something use electricity. Bitcoin and the crypto ecosystem is an important part of the future of finance. And so it should cost something. But there's a commitment, I think, and you're going to see it louder and more clear from people in the industry to say, hey, let's make this as carbon neutral as possible. All electricity in 6, 7, 8 years is going to be green anyway, right? If you look at the cost curves of solar and wind and geothermal, how fast they're coming. So there's this gap in between when I think the world has got to figure out how do we make all industries greener.
Is it fun, though, Melton? I mean, how fun is it when so much of the market cap can be moved by literally one-word tweets by one person?
But look, hold on. That's not what moved the market. At CoinShares, we look at data. We manage $5 billion in assets. We're a publicly listed company. I don't care what Elon Musk says. My job and my team's job is looking at the data. Here's what's happening. Macro markets on Friday, we saw skittishness in tech stocks. We saw brief equities sell-off that's contributed to the sea of red in crypto. Tax season means they're selling across markets. And look, let's be very realistic. Bitcoin up 300% since the start of the year. It's very normal to see 25 to 40% corrections and pullbacks. What we're seeing, the majority of selling activity we've seen over the last week has been from new holders. People are coming in, they're getting spooked. Weak hands are selling. We also see skittishness as we see a lot of uncertainty around stimulus in the macro climate contributing to selling, primarily retail driven. Also, if we look at the option side of the market, skew has been bearish for the last 2 weeks. So if we look at order books, right, traders have been primarily positioned on the short side, expecting a correction. I think right now, and if we look at the data right now, that sentiment is flipping. We're about as bearish as we can get. And again, this isn't about tweets. This is about using data to inform our perspective. Last week, for the first time, we saw over 50 million in outflows in crypto exchange traded products on the Bitcoin side, continuing to see inflows into Ethereum. And we see a lot of sector rotation as profits that have been realized on the Bitcoin side are now going further out on the risk reward spectrum into other assets, including Ethereum, Solana, FTT, just to name some. But there is a broader base sector rotation. Crypto's not immune to it, but I wouldn't overstate the impact that any one person's tweets can have on this market.
And in favor of Coca-Cola. David, Carl, it may be the moment at hand. And if lumber rolls over every day, and I know it's still too high, and we blasted housing yesterday because of the housing numbers, what does Jay Powell have to do other than sit back and laugh?
Yeah, it's a great point, Jim. Lumber has gone from almost 1,700 to below 1,100. It was limit down again yesterday. You know, I see how you're trying to separate the market activity into various silos, but there is an ongoing discussion about high prices slowing down the recovery. Purchase apps on mortgages, Jim, up 2.5 year on year.
Listen, I think China is very focused on their own central bank issued digital currency. They want to, have people trade with the digital renminbi. And so I don't think they're going to smash blockchain because they're kind of a pro-blockchain country, but they want to control things. And so a lot of countries would rather have, they don't mind Bitcoin being used as digital gold, but they don't want it used as a payment currency. Bitcoin's not used as a payment currency, and that's all been a myth. But I think you've got to watch China very carefully with their digital renminbi. It's a geopolitical play. The U.S. has got to get on the move quickly, I think, to keep up, because pretty soon you're going to have everyone in the Mideast and Africa and South America, being offered, to transact in digital renminbi, which will probably be relatively stable, right? The renminbi is a pretty strong currency right now. With the weakness of the dollar, people like being long the renminbi anyway. Right. And so I think it's certainly a geopolitical move.
Right, but Mike, the Bitcoin technology unto itself, as we've talked about, is about as inefficient as it comes. In fact, its inefficiency is part of the design of it, in part to create the value you're talking about. But I think there's a view that if you were actually creating a new currency or a new asset in this day and age, and you were trying to be environmentally friendly, there are lots of other coins and other ways to do it that actually would be a more efficient way to do it. And that's what I'm wondering about Bitcoin unto itself.
Listen, the market's going to decide why people like Bitcoin. It is the most decentralized. It is the most secure in that respect, right? It costs a lot to secure it because it's securing over $1 trillion on its way to 2 trillion, 3 trillion, 5 trillion.